For people who don't know what holistics entail, like explain a little bit more about that and elaborate.
So it's like encompassing all of your life. It's not just your diet. It's your mental health. It's your spiritual walk. It's your stress levels and all of that stuff, like your productivity. It goes into, holistics isn't just about food and about medicine and about healing. It's about like really just living a whole healthy life that, you know, is going to make you happy.
When did that like start for you? Like when did it click? Because I'm sure that there was, you don't just wake up and or you're like born and you're like, yep, this is it, right?
Yeah,
you know,
I'm gonna do this,
at some point something had to have like clicked for you to make that. I don't even want to consider it a drastic change, but it's a change. It's a different perspective and outlook on life.
Yeah, it was probably, the curiosity started sophomore year of high school when I was in cross country actually, and I switched to being vegetarian. And I was like, okay, I saw this woman on YouTube and I was like, wow, she's like eating so healthy and she's eating things that are good for her body and like there's no harm to animals. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't have to be a part of something that's causing harm to, you know, the planet and to animals. And it started there. And then as high school went on, I actually ended up getting like an inflamed liver my junior year, and like I was like, I thought medicine and like plants, I thought holistic health was gonna be what helped me in high school, and I was like eating all of these things and you know, incorporating a lot of plant foods. And when I ended up getting like sick, I wasn't like sick, but I just had this weird episode. I was like, well, what the heck? Like, plants are supposed to help me. Why is this happening? And it started there. And then I started to research more into like what happens through detox. Like like people forget that detox exists. Like, and that detox can take years, honestly, because people's bodies can be so heavily affected by toxins that you wouldn't naturally think of every day. Like there's things that are toxins that you're like, no, that can't be a toxin, but like it is. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh,
and it's like,
I'm nervous.
No. It's about what you can assimilate to. And if you can handle certain toxins, then you can handle toxins and like go through life. But I think it clicked sophomore year of college, and I was like, I just kept talking about it. My mom, I just kept hearing her say, like, you don't shut up about this. Like, this is something, like, you literally look so happy every time you talk about holistic health and, like, food and plants and stuff like that. And she was like, you just don't shut up about it. So, like, why are you majoring in English right now when I know that, like, you've always been good at science. You've always been good at, like, the anatomy of the body. So she was always like, I think when she said that, I was like, wow, I really do talk about it a lot, and I really do love it.
It takes a while for us to kind of realize what we are really passionate about, because sometimes it's so like underneath, like, and second nature that we don't even like consciously think about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love communication, and I do broadcasts as like my actual career, but I wouldn't have ever thought that I would be doing this right now, like a podcast. Like that's so bizarre to me. I'm always behind the camera, you know, working in a control room, but I am passionate about it, but it just never like clicked until way later.
I had just scratched the surface of what holistic nutrition was when I realized that. I was just like, oh, natural medicine, like I'm gonna see what that is. And then I dove into it and I was like, okay, like this is a lot. Like there's a lot of information on natural medicine, and like tea blends especially. Like people don't know the power of plants, and I was fascinated by that. Like rosemary, like who would have thought rosemary could be like antiviral? And I was like, okay, well, I want to do something that's going to help people, but in a way that is like unconscious. So tea, it's like, oh yeah, I want a cup of tea, like I want something just hot to drink, but like what you're consuming is actually fueling your body and it's helping your body. So I was always not on the fence, but always wanted to create something that tasted good and that people were gonna like to consume, but also that created like a ritualistic like aspect. And like I don't know for me or for you, but I really love making tea. Like the process of making tea is like grounding, and it's slow, like it slows you down.
Your desire to help people in a very like casual but effective way, I think is important, and I think can impact a lot of people. So in a world with big pharmaceutical companies, what is the motivation for pursuing the path that you're on with holistic practices?
I think it comes down to history, and like there was a time when we didn't have pharmaceutical agencies and we didn't have access to modern science and, you know, medicine that we do today. And back then, like people, let's just say nomads, like nomads used to like forage for things, and like we don't know exactly when they died, sadly, or we don't know the age to which they lived, but they were able to, you know, heal themselves just by plants because that's all they had access to. And I think that's the key, like going back to the roots of medicine. Because I don't think medicine is bad, and I don't think science is bad, and I don't disagree with some pharmaceutical agencies. It's just balance. Like there has to be a balance between natural and then also what you can't do anymore. Like what natural medicine can't do for you anymore, that's where modern science comes in. And I think because today it's so fast paced and people are so, I just want to get better quick. Like they don't want to put the work into,
they want like instant like results.
Yeah, instant gratification and to feel better like with a band-aid on. Like it's more like they put a band-aid on something rather than healing it at the source. I don't know. I think there has to be a balance because there's some things like plants are not going to help if you're like bleeding to death. Like you need modern medicine and you need like things like blood thinners and stuff like that. Yeah. And then there's vitamins and supplements too that I'm like, oh, if only you knew the power of like supplementation and stuff too. Yeah, because some of our bodies don't like have enough iron or enough of this or that. And that plays a role into different kinds of ailments, I would say, if that's the correct use of that word. Because sometimes it doesn't really lead, or maybe it does, I'm not sure, lead to diseases or anything like that. But ooh, this is a good topic. I'm not, you know, like let's talk about it. You know? I was actually having a conversation with my coworkers yesterday regarding this, and for anyone who doesn't know, I'm vegan. I've been vegan for like 6 years. So she was talking to me and she's like, do you just get upset when like people are like, oh, you're not getting enough iron, you're not getting enough protein? And I don't get upset, and I actually am not the person who's like, oh, you need to eat like me, like you need to be vegan or you need to be vegetarian or you need to consume less meat, because I think what the main thing to put importance on is that everybody's different. Literally every single body, every person's body is different, and every person's body assimilates to different things. She's like, wow, so you don't think that everyone needs vitamin C? I was like, I think everyone needs vitamin C to a certain degree. Depends on like the milligram and the dosage. And some people, like, they don't have to have vitamin C every day because like their body can sustain it in their own self. And I was like, there's people who need, like, are super deficient on zinc. Yeah. And like that's the importance, that every body is different. Like every single body is different, and every body can assimilate to different things. And some people will not supplement at all, like their whole entire lives, and be fine because of what they eat. And like, I don't know, just their body, like their body was made, and they happen to be, you know, fine. Like they don't need as much vitamin C, they don't need as much iron, they don't need as much of that stuff. What happens when there's someone on the other side that opposes what you do? Because we all have different perspectives and viewpoints on how we should live our lives, and we all have different definitions of what healthy means to us. What does it do to your ego and what you believe in when someone is passionately opposed to what you believe? I actually, like, it used to make me angry. Like, it used to get me really, really frustrated because I was like, I don't understand how somebody can eat, like, meat and be like healthy. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But then through like documentaries and research and reading medical things, I was just like, oh, okay, like I understand now. But when someone's opposed now, I'm like, okay, like live your life. That's, you do you. Like, I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm gonna stick to what has worked for me, because in the end, I'm gonna do what is best for me. So if eating plants and eating whole foods is gonna make me feel good, then you can say whatever you want. I don't care.
Online, you see a lot of noise, that distort your journey. So to be able to stay true to what you believe in and to own in on that, I think is remarkable. And I have to admire that. I mean, like, I respect that.
Thank you.
Because for me, like, speaking personally, like, it can get a little chaotic in my head. And I know that you've also, like, on a couple occasions have, like, vented or, like, expressed your concern or frustration, and because it's important to you in your experience. So that's why I asked that question, like, to really figure out, like, when someone doesn't agree with us, understanding that that's okay, like, that's fine, you don't have to agree with it, but there are words that get, like, that really stick and hit differently. And as I mentioned, I read something recently that someone basically studied holistic practices and then kind of denounced what the last few years of what they've dedicated their life to.
When I see that, I'm like, okay, I want to know. I'm like really logical. Like, I want to know what made you denounce what you've been backing up for years, and like what has made you, like, what you were so passionate about once, why did it change? So when I see that, I even get a little frustrated when I see that. I'm like, it's almost like making the holistic nutrition look bad when it's not.
Yeah. And
it makes us look like that community look like we don't know anything. Like, what we're saying is just like gibberish. Like, it's just hoopla and it doesn't matter. So when I see it, it's a little annoying, but I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep pushing forward what I'm passionate about, because somebody's gonna get it eventually.
Yeah.
And like, the education is out there. And when people do that, and like, it confuses people when people like just denounce, oh, holistics, I'm gonna just denounce holistics. I'm like, but did you research why they denounced it? Did you look into why? Maybe, like, was there a hidden agenda? Was there something? Are they sick? And that's why they're like, oh, holistics isn't working because I got sick.
I think it's important for us to not do that, because if something didn't work for us, like, doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means that it just didn't work for us. Sometimes when we know something like works, we don't want to mess with it and change the pattern of things. Like, if I have a headache, and like, I am victim of this, like, I take ibuprofen sometimes, like, I'm a human.
No, you're good. I take Tylenol sometimes.
I'm right here, like, offending you. No, I'm joking. But, I know that my headache will be gone. Or maybe the sole fact that I think that it's gonna work is what actually programs my brain. God. Like, that's a rabbit hole on its own. Like,
that's epigenetics.
Having the belief that, like, this is going to do this to me, so like
it already just does it magically.
So that's a whole different argument. Whether or not you agree or disagree with that, that's fine. But it's so like quick and instant, and just like, I know it'll work, so I just go to that, versus trying something new, trying something that's foreign and that I don't completely understand. Can be intimidating. Some people probably just don't want to waste their time, I think. Like,
I think it has to do with habits too. Like, people are so habitual. Like, we're creatures of habit. Like, we do the same things every single day, and nobody wants to change that. Because
we hate change. Like, humans hate change.
And like, no one wants to disrupt their routine with like incorporating something new. And especially with holistics and natural medicine, it takes time. Like, you're not just gonna get better overnight. Like, this stuff some people, it takes years for them to like be completely, I don't want to say cured, because apparently we can't say that. Right. But it can take years for somebody to get better, or months, and they'll start out trying something that's natural medicine, and then they're like, well, it's not working after like a week. I'm like, this isn't something that's instant gratification. This is something that's gonna like totally transform your body.
And one thing to think about or ponder is the possibility of them not having the faith that they have in like modern medicine. So like I just mentioned, you know, like we know that ibuprofen is going to work or Advil is going to work so instantly. So if I'm unsure about this, what makes you think? I mean, that's even tied into religion and you know, Christianity, if you want, or just faith, if we want to call it that. Like having faith that God is going to provide, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. Like if you're unsure and if you're kind of half-assing it, then you will probably never really see results, period. Yeah. So I think that could be a factor in it, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's actually a doctor, and I can say that because he is a doctor. But his name's Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he goes into the mind and what the mind can either help or it can hinder us so much. And like you said, we take a Tylenol, and just by the act of us taking a Tylenol, we're like, oh, my headache's gone.
Yeah.
And he's like, that in itself is the placebo effect.
Right.
It hasn't even hit your stomach yet, and you're like, my headache's gone. And I'm like,
how long does it take for it to really get into
Tylenol?
Like, yeah.
I think it's like 45 minutes. Okay. So when people like take a Tylenol and like 5 minutes later they're like, oh, my headache's gone. I'm like, that's you. And like, that's you. Do you know what I mean? That's your mind. Your mind made it so that your headache could go away. So are you depending on something that could just make your headache go away? Or are you depending on a drug? Wow. That's part of holistics too. Like people forget, like your mind is so important. Where you are at in your mind, like that says a lot about your health.
The same way that we like exercise our bodies, we have to like exercise like our brain and like our mental health. And so if we are not healthy mentally, like I think that our bodies physically will also, you know, see those repercussions. Yeah. Like we have to exercise, you know, like we have to exercise our body and our mind, our soul, all of it, in order to remain healthy and to get healthier if we're not healthy. And one thing that I wanted to add, because you talked about like our minds having the power to like heal, I want to know in your like personal journey, like what is one way that you have healed yourself over the last year? Because the last year has consisted of nothing but chaos.
I feel like I'm trying to not focus on so much of the bad that has happened this year and focus on what could change.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, especially lately in the times that are happening, people are like, honestly, people are getting depressed and they're like sick of how the world has been and what's been happening lately. And I think it's important to see how we can move forward, but like educate ourselves. Like we live in a world that there's so much knowledge, but no one taps into that. No one looks into.
It goes back into I think the habits, right? Or the intimidation, I think, of people wanting to take the time to learn. Like you're right, there's so much knowledge everywhere. Like we have access to all this stuff, but sometimes I think people are okay with coasting. I don't think you're really experiencing life and getting the most out of it. Like you're not really experiencing any joy. You're not experiencing memorable moments or maybe even laughter. Like you're literally just semi-content. I wouldn't even say you're content, you're just semi-content. When I think of content, I think of like retirement. Yeah. Like I'm ready to like rest and then do nothing. Like that's when you can coast, you know?
Yeah, that's when it's okay.
But up until then, like there are things to learn, there are things to try, there are things to be open to, and I think that's one of the biggest aspects of life, you know?
Yeah. I like that you said about rest.
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard. But then that's where the balance comes in. Yeah. I'm like, we live in a world that's like go, 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 go. And like, I gotta go get this. I gotta make this money. I gotta like do this. And I'm like, you also gotta rest.
Yeah.
And I'm really bad at that, at resting. But that's another thing. Like, I've been trying to do that this year. Let me just chill.
Why is it hard for you to rest?
I don't know. I feel like I'm not productive. Like, being unproductive makes me feel bad.
Anxious, right?
Yeah.
I'm
like, I gotta be doing something.
No, I can't stand it. It's one of the hardest things for me, and it's one of the things that I've also like realized, like fully accept that it's quite difficult to slow down. When I have time off, or if like I'm on like a small vacation, like I usually still try to find ways of being productive, or like what can I do to set myself up for success, or just make sure I'm ahead of schedule. And so I'm just finding myself working and overworking, and it gets hard to stop and like appreciate like what like is occurring right now. You know, like being present
and what the experience has brought you,
and learning from it, you know.